Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Kitchell, and today we're going over part 6 for Baha'u'llah is the Return of Christ. And today we're going to be going over the man of lawlessness, or also known as the Antichrist. Now, today's presentation is going to be broken down into two parts. First one is going to be going over evidence that the last will and testament of Abdu'l is a forged document. Second one is going to go over 2 Thessalonians 2 breakdown, because that gives a description of the Antichrist. Then we're going to inconsistencies in the faith. That's part 1 of the presentation. Part 2 is going to be going to Daniel 11 breakdown, because that gives a further description of the Antichrist. And then we're going to tie it off with the day of the Lord, and then we'll be done. So, we're going to start off with Daniel 12, verse 12, because it gives us a timeline. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of 1,335 days. So here it says there's going to be the abomination of desolation. Now, as a reminder of what the abomination of desolation is, the abomination of desolation is a direct attack onto God, because there have been 2 abominations of desolation so far. First one was from Antiochus IV. Well, he was a Greek king. He went to the temple of God, stopped them with daily sacrifices, and defiled the temple of God. So that was a direct attack onto God. The second abomination of desolation was when the second temple was destroyed in year 70 AD. That's when the Roman general Titus, future emperor of Rome, went to the temple, sacrificed an ox and pig and a sheep on the temple altar. So remember, pigs are unclean animals in Judaism. And declared the Roman gods to be superior to the God of Israel. And it was a direct attack onto God, the temple of God. And so what we're seeing here is that there will be another abomination of desolation set up. Now, Abdu'l, he gives us 2 interpretations for this verse. He says, the commencement of this lunar reckoning is from the proclamation of the prophethood of Muhammad and of Hijaz, and that was 3 years after the revelation of his mission. Because in the beginning, the prophethood of Muhammad was concealed, and no one knew it save Khadija ibn Nafal, until it was publicly announced 3 years later. It was in the year 1290, from the proclamation of the mission of Muhammad, that Baha'u'llah announces revelation. So that's the first interpretation. That's from some answer questions. Second interpretation from the passing of Abdu'l. For these days must be reckoned as solar and not lunar years. For according to this calculation, a century will have elapsed from the dawn of the Sun of Truth. Then will the teachings of God be firmly established upon the earth. And the divine light shall flood the world from the east even unto the west. Then on this day will the faithful rejoice. So we have 2 interpretations here. First one is lunar. Second one is solar. We're going to do a breakdown of each one. Now, when I was originally doing the Baha'u'llah's Return of Christ series, I originally wasn't going to go into this verse because I really couldn't make much of it. And I'm going to show you why. Because when Muhammad declared himself to be prophet, he waited 10 years to tell anybody. That's 612 AD. Because remember, the Islamic calendar starts in 622 AD when Muhammad fled from Mecca to Medina. So starting 612 AD plus 1290 after Hijrah. So remember, the Islamic calendar is lunar, not solar. It has 354 days in it, not 365. That takes you to year 1863, which is when Baha'u'llah declared himself to be the return of Christ. And that's about 45 years. And then you got the last 45 years after Hijrah. And then I couldn't find anything important on the Baha'i calendar. And then the second part, 622 AD plus 1335 solar is 1957. That's when Shoghi Effendi passed away. But if you go take the other verse, you can continue that. 612 AD plus 1290 after Hijrah. That's 1863, as we said earlier. Plus year 100 AD. That's 1963. What the Baha'i Administrative Order claims is that the prophecy showing that was the year that they were supposed to be set up. Because Abdu'l says it will take a century later for this to be complete. And that's what they're trying to claim. However, I really never went along with this because it never explains the remaining 45 years. Because you got the 1290 after Hijrah. Where's the 1335 at? Plus, you're jumping numbers right there. So just throwing in the 100 based off the century, but it could not be a literal century. It could be about a century because that's 1957. So I really never went into this because you're jumping between solar and lunar calendars. You're changing the start dates. The abomination of desolation is never explained. This verse clearly has multiple interpretations to it. Now, here's the other one I started looking at, because I actually first realized this on 15 June 2021, because I felt a very strong calling that I need to turn to this verse and look it up. Because there's only ever been two other times in my life I've ever felt this strong of a calling. The first one was after my deployment to Afghanistan was canceled. I felt a very strong calling. I need to call another captain, and he's going to get me on another Afghan deployment. So I called that captain. I'm going to withhold his name, but I called him, and he got me onto an Afghanistan deployment. And that's where I did my 18 months to Afghanistan, followed by the 6 months in Kuwait. And if you watch my How I Became a Baha'i presentation, I kind of go into what happened there. The other time I felt this very strong of a calling was when I came to where I live now. I went to Baha'i Center. I came home, I thought about just never coming back. But I felt a very strong calling. No, go back again. And so when I went back, my questions were clarified, and that's when I became Baha'i. And so those are the only two times I've ever felt the strong of a calling. The next one was on 15 June 2021. I felt a very strong calling that I need to turn to this verse and look it up. And then that's when I found that verse from Abdu'l. This is solar, not lunar. And so when I looked at it from solar, because 622, that's the start of the calendar for the beast, which I already went into in my previous videos. So 622 plus 1290 solar, that's 1912. That was Abdu'l's trip to America, and Shoghi Effendi turned 15. And that's significant because 15 years old is the year of maturity in the Baha'i Faith. And then 622 AD plus 1335 AD is 1957. That's the year Shoghi Effendi passed away. So Shoghi Effendi turning 15 to his death is known as the abomination of desolation. I thought that was really interesting, because in the Baha'i Faith, Shoghi Effendi, he was the head of the faith. He was the guardian of the faith. Why does the Bible say that his adult life is a direct attack onto God? I found that very interesting. And then when I turned to 1912, I also noticed that Abdu'l lost his seal on his trip to America. Well, I had to ask myself, what if his seal wasn't lost? What if his seal was stolen? As I said, previous abominations of desolations were direct attacks on the temple of God. Now, in my last part 5, I went into what the temple of God is. So Shoghi Effendi, being head of the Baha'i Faith like that, would have been a direct attack onto God, on the temple of God. And one thing every Christian knows, the person who commits the abomination of desolation is the Antichrist. And so this is where I have to stop and wonder, is Shoghi Effendi the guardian of the cause, or is he the Antichrist? Because here's a verse I want to get into, because Abdu'l, he gives a breakdown. It's going to be 2 slides long. I won't put the full verse on here. Revelation 11:19. Then God's temple in heaven was open, and within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. Abdu'l says, through the dissemination of these divine teachings, the disclosure of these heavenly mysteries, and the dawning of the sun of truth, the portals of progress and advancement will be flung open on all sides, and the signs of celestial blessings and bestowals will be made manifest. They go on and say, the book of his covenant will appear in his Jerusalem. The tablet of the testament will be recorded, and the meaning of the covenant and testament will be evident. The call of God will resound throughout the east and the west, and the earth will be filled with renown of the cause of God. The violators of the covenant will be humbled and abased, and the faithful will attain honor and glory, for they hold fast to the book of the covenant and are firm and unwavering in the path of the testament. So I'm saying right here, God's temple is going to come, which I already went to what God's temple was in part 5, and this is where the covenant of God is going to be established. And that's the covenant the Baha'i Faith established right there. So it's going to happen. But here's what I found interesting from this interpretation. And there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and an earthquake and a great hailstorm. Abdu'l says, after the appearance of the book of the covenant, there will be a great tempest. The lightning of divine anger and wrath will flash. The thunder of the violation of the covenant will break. The tremor of doubt will shake the earth. The hail of torments will rain upon the violators of the covenant, and those who claim to believe will be subject to tests and trials. So it says, the covenant will be established. The temple of God will be established, but the covenant will be broken. And this is going to draw God's divine anger. And everyone who claims to believe will be subject to tests and trials. That's what this says right here. And as I said, 1912 to 1957, the adult life of Shoghi Effendi is the abomination of desolation. And it says right here, the covenant of God will be broken. And this is Abdu'l who said it. So it had to be broken after Abdu'l. And Abdu'l came before Shoghi Effendi. So this is why I really started to look at this and ask myself, is Shoghi Effendi the Antichrist? Because it says, 2 Thessalonians 2, description of the Antichrist. Concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered to him, we ask you, brothers, not to be easily unsettled and alarmed by some prophecy, report, or letter supposed to have come from us, saying that the day of the Lord has already come. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. So it says, don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. And we know, 1912 to 1957, the adult life of Shoghi Effendi is the abomination of desolation. He will oppose and exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. Shoghi Effendi was the former head of the Baha'i Faith, so he was set up in God's temple. Remember, I went into part 5 what the temple of God is. He's proclaiming himself to be God. So did Shoghi Effendi ever proclaim himself to be God? And here's what it says in the last one, Testament of Abdu'l. The sacred and useful branch, the guardian of the cause of God, referring to Shoghi Effendi, as well as the Universal House of Justice to be universally elected and established, are both under the care and protection of Abha the Beauty, under the shelter and erring guidance of the Exalted One. May my life be offered up from them both. Whatsoever they decide is of God. Whoso obeyeth him not, neither obeyeth them, hath not obeyed God. Whoso rebelleth against him and against them hath rebelled against God. Whoso opposes him has opposed God. Whoso contendeth with them has contended with God. Whoso disputeth with them has disputed with God. Whoso denieth with him has denied with God. Whoso disbelieveth them has disbelieved in God. Whoso deviateth, separateth himself, and turneth aside from him, has in truth deviated, separated himself, and turned aside from God. May the wrath, fierce indignation, the vengeance of God rest upon him. The mighty stronghold shall remain impregnable and safe through obedience to him who is the guardian of the cause of God. It is incumbent upon the members of the House of Justice, upon all the Akhdan, the hands of the cause of God, to show their obedience, submissiveness, and subordination unto the guardian of the cause of God, to turn unto him and be lowly before him. He that opposes him has opposed the true one and will make a breach in the cause of God, will subvert his word, and will become a manifestation of the sinner of sedition. So he will be in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. This right here literally says that Shoghi Effendi is God. If you take this literally, the will of God is subordinate to Shoghi Effendi, who claimed to be the guardian of the cause. And as I said, a handwriting expert examined the Lost Will Testament of Abdu'l and declared it to be a forgery. So that checks off for 2 Thessalonians 2 regarding the Antichrist. One thing I want to put in here, manifestations never made this claim. Let's take Moses, for example. God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation. Because notice here, Moses did not compare himself to God. He was sent by God to the Israelites. He did not compare himself to God. Here we have Jesus. I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, Jesus claimed to be the Son of God. And this is where we get into the Trinity. And the Trinity has been thoroughly explained by Abdu'l. Then Muhammad, he was referred to as the messenger of God. And then the Bab, in the Dawnberry curse, it says right here, I am the promised one. I am the one whose name you have invoked for 1,000 years, and whose mention you have risen, whose advent you have longed to witness, the hour whose revelation you have prayed God to hasten. He says, the Bab said right here, I am the promised one. The Bab did not compare himself to God. And the Baha'u'llah's declaration in the Garden of Ridvan, he said that he is God's messenger, and the next messenger will not come for 1,000 years. Again, they're messengers of God. They did not compare themselves to God. That last will and testament of Abdu'l compared Shoghi Effendi to God, and it made God's will subordinate to Shoghi Effendi. Here, the manifestations are subordinate to God's will. So there's a really big difference here between what the manifestation said and what was said in the last will and testament of Abdu'l regarding Shoghi Effendi. Now, 2 Thessalonians continued. Don't you remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things, and now you know what is holding him back, so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of the lawlessness is already at work. But the one who holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and the ways that wickedness deceive those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. And that's what I like. That's what I find interesting here. The secret power of the lawlessness is already at work. The abomination of desolation started in 1912. Abdu'l passed away in 1921, 9 years later. But the one who now holds it back will continue to do so until he's taken out of the way. And that was when Abdu'l passed away in 1921, because Abdu'l was the one holding it back. And then the lawless one will be revealed. That's when Shoghi Effendi was revealed, with the last will and testament of Abdu'l. After Abdu'l passed away, after he was no longer there to hold it back, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the splendor of his coming. Those are the sacred texts, the writings of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l, the independent search for the truth. That's what that is right there, because that's ultimately what is going to get Shoghi Effendi. The coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works, because especially if you're raised a Christian, one thing you're always taught, Satan has to defile everything that God creates. And so with the Baha'i Faith being defiled by the guardianship, this is exactly in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of displays of powers through signs and wonders that serve the lie. The lie is the last will and testament of Abdu'l. As I said, that was examined by a handwriting expert and declared to be a forgery, which I'll get into later. And all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Because the lie is the guardianship and the Baha'i administrative order. The truth is what Abdu'l and Baha'u'llah taught. And many people believe the lie and not the truth. Now, just to get into a little more detail here. And now you know what is holding him back so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of the lawlessness is already at work. But the one who holds it back will continue to do so until he's taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed. No one knew that Shoghi Effendi was supposed to be the guardian of the cause after Abdu'l passed away. The guardianship was never mentioned by Baha'u'llah, and it was never mentioned by Abdu'l. And they never made any indication that Shoghi Effendi was supposed to lead the Baha'i Faith after Abdu'l. It was never said. This all came in order, under the last will and testament of Abdu'l. And I said, this is all revealed after his death. For the secret power of losses are at work, but the one who holds it back will continue to do so till he is taken out of the way. After he died, that's when this all was revealed. As I said, Abdu'l passed away in 1921, and the abomination of desolation began in 1912. It was already at work in 1912. So, 2 Thessalonians to continue. He will use all sorts of displays of power through signs and wonders that serve the lie, and all the ways that wickedness deceives those who are perishing. They perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. The lie must be so great of a lie is the only time in the Bible this phrase is ever used. It must be the greatest lie ever told. It must be revealed after he who holds it back is taken out of the way, which is Abdu'l. And it was revealed after Abdu'l passed away. It must reveal the man of lawlessness or the man of sin, the Antichrist. And that's when Shoghi Effendi was revealed. It sets himself up in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. And that Shoghi Effendi was set up as the head of the Baha'i Faith, and he declared himself to be God. It must defile everything sacred. And if this document was a forgery, it would defile everything sacred. And the last will and testament of Abdu'l does precisely that, which is why 1912 to 1957 is a abomination of desolation. And the last will and testament of Abdu'l was examined by a handwriting expert and declared to be a forgery. And I'll get, as I said, I'll get into that a little bit later. So let's get into let's turn back to 1912. What exactly happened here? It says in Mahmoud's diary, 17 October 1912. The master, referring to Abdu'l, left for San Francisco early in the morning. He had lost the seal, so all his tablets and writings made during this time were signed by him in his own pen. Because I had to stop and ask myself, what if his seal wasn't lost? What if his seal was stolen? Because the argument that the Baha'i administrative order always uses was the last will and testament of Abdu'l had to be written before 1912 because parts 1 and 2 of it has Abdu'l's seal on it. Part 3 does not. So I say he had to have written that before 1912 because it has a seal on it. Then he had to have written part 3 later on because it didn't have a seal. But if Abdu'l's seal was stolen and not lost, that could have been forged after 1912. Now let's go down to what happened before Abdu'l arrived in America in 1912. Because when they were going to be going to America, it's supposed to be group going, but a lot of them, but few of the people, to include Shoghi Effendi, did not make it to America because they were taken off the ship. And it says, the ship's doctor had already given his opinion about the infection of Husser's eyes. When these physicians examined the passenger's eyes, they said that the eyes of the Shoghi Effendi, Mirza, Mimiri, Zain were also infected and that they must leave the ship. The efforts of Abdu'l, his companions, and the American friends were of no avail, and apparently were not in accord with God's mysterious plan. Because the ship's doctor and the doctor that was traveling with him, Dr. Amin Farid, wanted Shoghi Effendi taken off the trip to America. Why? And it says right here, or not in accord with God's mysterious plan. So there's a much bigger plan going on here. And it says the next day, 30 March, Abdu'l bestowed upon those 3 souls his utmost kindness and blessings and bade them farewell. With great sadness and dejection, they left the ship. The master's heart was broken and all the companions were very sad. Abdu'l said, there is wisdom in this matter which will become known later. Here's what I found interesting. There is wisdom in this matter which shall become known later. This is 1912. This is the start of the abomination of desolation. This is the start of the rebellion against God. This is when Shoghi Effendi was taken off the ship. Why does he say that? And it says, the master's heart was broken and all the companions were very sad. Why was Abdu'l's heart so broken that Shoghi Effendi was taken off? Because he knew that this was the start of the rebellion against God. Shoghi Effendi chose rebellion right here. And the Bible says, the man lawlessness, the man doomed to destruction. Abdu'l knew what just happened right there. And that's why he was very sad and his heart was absolutely broken for Shoghi Effendi. Now, here's one thing I found interesting. I'm going to jump back to the Bible. When Judas betrayed Jesus, it says in Matthew 26, Jesus replied, the one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had never been born. Then Judas, the one who would betray Jesus, said, surely not I, Rabbi. Jesus answered, yes, it is you. Because the Old Testament prophesies that Christ, Jesus, was going to be betrayed. When Judas betrayed Jesus, Jesus gave Judas a choice. Are you going to betray me, or are you going to choose the path of rebellion? And Judas looked at Jesus in the face and said, no, Jesus, I'm not going to be the one who's going to betray you. Jesus looked at him and said, yes, you are going to be the one who's going to betray me. And Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Now, in Mahmoud's diary, before Shoghi Effendi was taken off the ship, it says, we all gathered and the master, again referring to Abdu'l, asked Shoghi Effendi to chant a prayer. After the prayer, he went to the dining room for morning tea. That's 26 March. 27 March. Abdu'l directed Shoghi to chant a prayer. During the prayer, the passengers became interested in the gathering and watched Abdu'l as he sat with his companions. Again, Abdu'l is having Shoghi Effendi chant prayers, just like Jesus had Judas dip his hand into the bowl with him. This is Abdu'l saying, what's it going to be, Shoghi Effendi? Are you going to choose the path of God, or are you going to choose the path of rebellion? And 2 days later is when the ship's doctor wanted Shoghi Effendi taken off. And the 30 March is when Abdu'l says, there is wisdom in this matter that shall be known in the future. Just like how Jesus said to Judas, yes, it is you who's going to betray me. Jesus gave Judas a choice. Will you betray me? Judas chose to. Abdu'l gave Shoghi Effendi a choice. Will you choose the path of God, or are you going to choose the path of rebellion? Shoghi Effendi chose the path of rebellion. And this is when Abdu'l, that's when he said, there's wisdom in this matter that shall be known in the future. And that's why Abdu'l, his heart was so broken when Shoghi Effendi made his choice. So now, how did this exactly take place? How did this go down? I put a few suspects on here because there's a few people who made it to America with Abdu'l. Well, the first one, Shoghi Effendi, as I said, he was taken off the ship. The adulthood of Shoghi Effendi is described as the abomination of desolation by the Bible. And the description of the Antichrist fits. I already went into that. And Shoghi Effendi, he dictated for Abdu'l. So if you wanted to forge a document, Shoghi Effendi would have known what Abdu'l's handwriting looked like. So he could have forged Abdu'l's handwriting. Dr. Farid, he was one of the doctors who went Shoghi Effendi off the ship. He was present when Abdu'l lost the seal, and he was later declared a covenant breaker. So I asked myself, did Dr. Farid steal the seal from Abdu'l? Now, there's a couple other things. Very few people knew that the last will and testament of Abdu'l even existed. Baha'i sources claim only 2 people knew. One was the Holy Mother, Abdu'l's wife. They claim that she knew it was buried there. The second one is the greatest holy leaf. That's the only daughter of Baha'u'llah. Baha'i sources claim only those 2 knew that the last will and testament of Abdu'l was buried. So I had asked myself, did they help Shoghi Effendi forge the documents? And Mason Remy, if you don't know much about the Baha'i Faith, after he became a hand of the cause, and he was very close to Shoghi Effendi while Shoghi Effendi was guardian. After Shoghi Effendi passed away, he tried to declare himself as guardian of the faith and Shoghi Effendi's heir. In Mason Remy, he was declared a covenant breaker and thrown out of the faith for what he did. And so we got Shoghi Effendi, his adult life is described as the abomination of desolation. Dr. Farid was present when Abdu'l lost the seal. Then the only 2 people who knew that its last will and testament were buried were the Holy Mother and the greatest holy leaf, the wife of Abdu'l and the only daughter of Baha'u'llah. And Mason Remy, he was a hand of the cause under Shoghi Effendi, and he tried to usurp the guardianship after Shoghi Effendi passed away. So these are the people I started investigating. Did they help Shoghi Effendi forge that document? Now let's start with Dr. Farid. Now, Abdu'l Mirza Mahmud Zarqani and Dr. Aminullah Farid went to America with Abdu'l. Baha'i sources agree that Dr. Farid wanted Shoghi Effendi removed from the trip to America. Why? Because if Shoghi Effendi's not there, they can't directly tie Shoghi Effendi to stealing the Abdu'l seal. But if Shoghi Effendi was there, the accusation that Shoghi Effendi stole the seal, it would have been a very credible accusation. But if somebody else steals the seal, then there's no credible accusation. It'd be very hard to trace. And then after Dr. Farid got back returned from America, his behavior became increasingly erratic. And this is consistent with somebody who committed a crime. Because usually when people commit crimes, you will see behavioral changes in them. And that's exactly what Dr. Farid did here. So we have evidence here that, yes, he committed a crime. And the crime was the stealing of Abdu'l's seal. And then just a couple of years later, after returning from America, Dr. Farid defied Abdu'l's orders and traveled to London to meet with Mason Remy in 1914. And for defying Abdu'l the way he did, Abdu'l declared him a covenant breaker and threw him out of the faith. And so we have that, yes, Dr. Farid could have helped Shoghi Effendi steal documents, and this directly ties Mason Remy into the forging of the document because they're helping each other. And then Shoghi Effendi described Dr. Farid's death as history will recognize one of the most perfidious among Kisman's interpreters, Center Covenant, who, driven by unforgivable cupidity, committed acts causing agonies, grief, distress, beloved master culminating open association breakers of Baha'u'llah's covenant Holy Land. So when Shoghi Effendi didn't reconcile Dr. Freed at all, and he kind of threw him under the bus after Dr. Freed passed away, and Shoghi Effendi was guardian of the cause. But you can still tie Dr. Freed here into helping Shoghi Effendi forge the documents. Next one, Mason Remy. Because here's what I find interesting about 1912 and 9 November. It says, Mr. Remy stood in the center of the hall facing the master, again referring to Abdu'l, and devoutly read a paper, afterwards congratulating the master on behalf of the friends and assuring him of their obedience and renunciation of the world. Why would he need to clarify that? Hey, Abdu'l, don't worry, I'm obedient and I'm renouncing the world. Well, why does he need to clarify that? This is 1912. This is the start of the rebellion. Oh, and remember, Abdu'l met with Dr. Farid after Dr. Farid was acting erratic and after Dr. Farid was declared a covenant breaker. And Mason Remy also attempted to usurp the guardianship after Shoghi Effendi passed away, declaring himself to be the guardian, and he formed the Orthodox Baha'is. And then here's another thing I found interesting. In 1922, Mason wrote that he had dreaded reaching Haifa because Abdu'l was not there, because Abdu'l passed away in 1921. Why would he dread reaching Haifa if Abdu'l was not there? Because it says a little bit later that he was worried because of the covenant breakers. Why? Why would he be concerned about covenant breakers? Why would he dread reaching it? Unless there's something much more sinister going on, like a forged last will and testament. Who knows this thing is forged? How many people know? How many people are going to oppose me among the covenant breakers? Those who are opposing him. Those would have been the questions which would have been consistent with his behavior. As like I said, he met with Dr. Farid before he was labeled a covenant breaker. He was a hand of the cause of Shoghi Effendi, and he attempted to usurp the guardianship after Shoghi Effendi passed away, and Mason Remy was declared a covenant breaker by the existing hands of the cause. So we can tie Mason Remy directly to helping forge the last will and testament of Abdu'l. Because if he forged that document, that would make a lot of sense why he tried to declare himself the next guardian after Shoghi Effendi passed away. Shoghi Effendi got away with it. Why couldn't he get away with it? That would make a lot of sense at that point. The Holy Mother, Minhiri Khanum, the wife of Abdu'l. Now, Baha'i sources claim that only her and Baha'u'llah's only daughter knew that the last will and testament was buried and knew it was written there. Because the Holy Mother, she had 5 daughters and 2 sons. Only 4 daughters survived. So one of her daughters and both her sons passed away. She came from Iran, which is a Shiite country. In Shiite Islam, after Muhammad passed away, it followed the bloodline to Ali. And then you had the Shiite Imams, and it followed the bloodlines to the male heirs. She had no male heir. So this would have been a very big burden on her because she was unable to continue the line. Remember, you had Baha'u'llah, then you had Abdu'l. It followed the male line. She can't continue it. So that would have been an enormous burden on her. So Shoghi Effendi, he was the oldest grandson of Abdu'l. So Shoghi Effendi could have gone to her and said, hey, I'm the oldest grandson of Abdu'l. I'm your oldest grandson. I am next in line to continue the line of the faith, like how the Shiite Imams from Iran were carried on. And since both of her sons passed away, that would have been an enormous burden on her because she would not have been able to continue the male line. That would have been a very, very powerful argument to make to get her to help forge that document. And so I can directly tie in the Holy Mother into helping forge the last will and testament of Abdu'l. Now we come to the greatest holy leaf. She was the only daughter of Baha'u'llah. Here's what I found interesting. 11 April 1912, the start of the rebellion. Abdu'l wrote to her. Her name is Bahia Khanum. Abdu'l wrote, write to me once about Ruha Khanum and Shoghi Effendi's conditions. Inform me fully in hiding nothing. This is the best way. Here's what I found interesting. Shoghi Effendi's condition. Inform me fully, hide nothing. What does he mean by that? Because remember, Abdu'l said, there is wisdom in this matter that should be known in the future. When Judas betrayed Jesus, he gave Jesus gave Judas an opportunity to come clean. Here's Abdu'l writing the greatest holy leaf, his sister. Here's your chance to come clean. Write to me everything and hide nothing. What's it going to be? Because Baha'u'llah Khanum, as I said, she was the only daughter of Baha'u'llah. She had a minor role under Baha'u'llah. And when Abdu'l traveled to America, she was the one who stood in for him. So she would have the resources needed to help Shoghi Effendi forge the documents. And any power she wielded in that time was dependent on whatever Abdu'l gave her. So if Abdu'l passed away and there was nothing in there regarding the last will and testament, or she had the role she didn't like, she would have lost a lot of her power. So, but under Shoghi Effendi, when Shoghi Effendi would disappear during his time as guardian, she would be appointed as head of the faith. And she, as long as she was living, she was always the right-hand person of Shoghi Effendi. So she's basically de facto number 2 person in the Baha'i Faith under Shoghi Effendi. And then Baha'i sources agree that she regularly dined with Shoghi Effendi. And much of the history that is written about her is written through the eyes of Shoghi Effendi. So her motivation to help Shoghi Effendi forge a document there would have been, she's the right-hand person. She's number 2. She's one that heads the faith. So she had a motivation to help Shoghi Effendi forge that document. So just to recap here a little bit, we got Shoghi Effendi. Adulthood is described as the abomination of desolation by the Bible, and the description of the Antichrist fits, and he dictated for Abdu'l. So he would have known what Abdu'l's handwriting looks like. Dr. Farid, he was an interpreter who was later declared a covenant breaker. He was there when Abdu'l lost his seal. So he could have taken that seal and brought it back to Shoghi Effendi. And his behavior became increasingly erratic after he returned. Mason Remy attempted to usurp the guardianship after Shoghi Effendi passed away. Baha'u'llah Khanum, daughter of Baha'u'llah, would have been highly susceptible to manipulation by Shoghi Effendi because she would have been the number 2 person in the Baha'i Faith. Wife of Abdu'l, the Holy Mother, Baha'u'llah Khanum, she would have been highly susceptible because both her sons passed away, and that would have been, and Shoghi Effendi, the oldest grandson of Abdu'l, would have been continued the line of the Baha'i Faith, like how the Shiite Imams were continued under Islam. And she had a Shiite background because she's from modern-day Iran. So we have suspects here with plausible motives. So here's what probably happened. 1912 was the beginning of the rebellion, and when the seal was stolen by Dr. Amin Farid. Because after Shoghi Effendi returned to did not get to America, Shoghi Effendi was so distraught over not going to America, he lost weight from depression. Okay, this is either manipulation or he's an unstable person. He's 15 years old. If I had a 15-year-old son who was so depressed over losing a trip, I would have taken him out and gave him a whipping, told him to grow up. It's okay to be disappointed, but to sit there and be so distraught you're going to lose weight, no, that's manipulation right there, or he's just an unstable person. He's trying to make up for something, because if he's so distraught over manipulation, who is going to question his motives right here? In 1913, after Abdu'l returned from America, Shoghi Effendi went to Egypt to join Abdu'l in the greatest holy leaf, the only daughter of Baha'u'llah. And this is when Dr. Farid's behavior became increasingly erratic. Because you have Dr. Farid, Shoghi Effendi, the greatest holy leaf, and most likely the Holy Mother all in one spot right there. And if they had the seal, they could have forged that document right then and there. And then in 1914 is when Dr. Farid was declared a covenant breaker for defying Abdu'l and meeting with Mason Remy in London. So I can tie all my suspects in directly in one spot right there. And then Shoghi Effendi and Mason Remy did not meet for another 8 years, which was after Abdu'l passed away, to which Mason Remy dreaded reaching Haifa because Abdu'l was not there. Well, why would he dread reaching Haifa because Abdu'l is not there? Unless he knew that was a forged document and he was afraid of what the response was going to be. So here's where we come to the last will and testament of Abdu'l. Baha'i sources claim the last will and testament was written before 1912 because it had Abdu'l's seal on the first 2 parts and it made references to early events. But if that seal was stolen, it wouldn't have had the seal on there and made reference to early events. Well, if the Holy Mother and Grace Holy Leaf were there helping him, they would have known those early events. So there's arguments that it had to be written in 1906 because of the seal and the references to events. That whole thing goes out the window. That was probably forged in 1913, 1914 timeframe. And plus, here's the thing. There is no chain of custody on the last will and testament of Abdu'l. This would not even be acceptable into a court. If a prosecutor tried to bring this evidence or defendant to try to bring this evidence to the court, the judge would never allow it. The jury would never see it. We don't know where this thing was buried. Because you ask any Baha'i, well, where is it buried at? They can't tell you. There's no date on it. We have an argument here that that document was forged. This would never even be accepted into a court. How in the world are you going to unite the entire world off of a document like this? You can't. And so let's go back to Shoghi Effendi, 2 Thessalonians 2. And now you know what is holding it back, so that he may be revealed at the proper time. For the secret power of the lawlessness is already at work, but the one who holds it back continues to do so till he is taken out of the way. And then the lost one will be revealed, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow the breath of his mouth and destroy by a splinter of his coming. The abomination of desolation began in 1912 according to the Bible. Again, I showed you where the rebellion started. Dr. Farid stole Abdu'l's seal. And Abdu'l said, there is wisdom in this matter that should be known in the future. So the secret power of the lawlessness is already at work. Starts in 1912. The last will and testament was probably forged in 1913, 1914 time frame. You bury the document because my Baha'i sources agreed that was a buried document. And they know it was buried because the last will and testament, it got wet. And so they know it was buried underground because of that. So you bury the document, you wait for Abdu'l to pass away. Once Abdu'l passes away, that's when you reveal the document. And it says, but for the secret power of the lawlessness is already at work. We already went over that. But the one who holds it back will continue to do so until he's taken out of the way. That's when Abdu'l passed away. And then the lawless one will be revealed. That's when Shoghi Effendi was revealed. And then the lost, whom the Lord Jesus will overthrow with the breath of his mouth and destroy by a splinter of his coming. In the Baha'i Faith, we have something called the independent source for the truth, which allows us to question the guardianship. Because if you read the last will and testament of Abdu'l, you are not allowed to question the Baha'i administrative order. You are not allowed to question the guardianship. To question that means that you will be thrown out of the faith. But Baha'u'llah put the independent source for the truth in there. And that's the grounds that gives Baha'is the grounds to go after the guardian, because no one can overrule a manifestation, not even the guardian, not even Abdu'l. And here's also a few other things I found interesting. This is where I kind of started to get into the inconsistencies in the faith. Abdu'l said, 16 September 1912, I am bearing discomforts of this journey with stopovers so that the cause of God may be protected from any breach. For I'm still not sure about what is going to happen after me. If I could be sure, then I would sit comfortably in the corner. I would not leave the Holy Land and travel far away from the most holy tomb. And I fear that self-seeking persons may again disrupt the love and unity of the friends. If the time were right and the house of justice were established, the house of justice would protect the friends. So if he wrote his last will and testament in year 1906, as the Baha'i administrative order claims, how did he not know what was coming next? He would have known. And he says, the time were right, the house of justice were established, the house of justice would establish the friends. The last will and testament of Abdu'l establishes the house of justice, also known as the universal house of justice. But he says here, it is not established because the time is not right. So why would he say he doesn't know what's going to happen next? And why would he say the house of justice were not established because the time is not right if he wrote that last will and testament? He wouldn't say anything like that. This goes to show that he did not write that. And he says right here, and I fear that self-seeking persons may again disrupt the love and unity of the friends. And as he said just a few months earlier, there is wisdom in this matter that shall be known in the future, because he knew what Shoghi Effendi was getting ready to do. He knew that Shoghi Effendi was going to usurp, was basically going to create the lie and usurp the guardianship. So that's one thing we got going on here. Another one regarding the Universal House of Justice, Abdu'l. But Baha'u'llah has closed all the doors to such differences by appointing the interpreter of the book and by establishing the Universal House of Justice. That is the People's Parliament, and by commanding it into interference in people's belief and consciences. He has barred the way to these divisions. So he says right here that the Universal House of Justice cannot interfere with people's beliefs and consciences. That is explicitly stated. It says right here in the last will and testament of Abdu'l, part 3, to none is given the right to put forth his own opinion or express his particular conviction. All must seek guidance and turn to the center of the cause in the house of justice. And he that turneth unto whatsoever else is indeed in grievous error. So Abdu'l explicitly says the house of justice cannot interfere with your individual beliefs. And explicitly says in the last will and testament of Abdu'l, to none is given the right to put forth his own opinion or express his particular conviction. So you have a direct contradiction there. If he wrote that, why would he put in there that you do not have the right to your opinion? Because one thing in Baha'i Faith, you must accept the Universal House of Justice is infallible. But here's the thing though, there's nothing parliamentarian about the current system. Because under the current Baha'i administrative order, you get one vote. You can vote for anybody in the whole Baha'i Faith. And the top 9 males who are elected to the Baha'i Faith, they're the 9 members of the Universal House of Justice. And notice I said males, not females, because women are not allowed to hold this position, which declaring that men and women are equal, while at the same time denying women the equal right is kind of a hypocritical position. But that's beside the point. But in the Baha'i Faith, you get one vote. You are not allowed to say anything. There is no campaigning. So all you're doing is voting at name recognition. You don't know what those people stand for. You don't know what they're going to do. So they get in there, and once they get in there, they are given absolute power. God's will is subordinate to them. That's how the Baha'i administrative order is set up. And he says, the People's Parliament. There's nothing parliamentarian about that. There is no discussion. There is no debate. You can vote for one person. You don't know who you're voting for. Well, you know the name. You don't know what they stand for. You don't know what they want to do. And then anytime they can shoot your opinion down at any time, because it says, to none is given the right to express their own opinion. There's nothing parliamentarian about that. Now, I will give them this. During consultation at the local spiritual assemblies, you can say anything you want to say. So yes, there is some latitude in that freedom. I won't concede that point to them. But you stand up, you say what you want to say, and then the Baha'i administrative order has absolute power to shoot down anything you say. So yes, you have the freedom to say it, but no, they just tell you what you have to believe. And it's justified through moderate freedom. But no, that's not even moderate freedom. That's a pure totalitarian dictatorship. As I said, there's nothing parliamentarian about it. Now, here it says, fruits of the Spirit. Jesus says, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruits you will recognize them. Do you pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. As the Bible says, in Galatians 5, but the fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, there is no law. So let's go into what are the fruits of what the Baha'i administrative order in Shoghi Effendi, what did they reap? Because he says, Mahmoud's diary, it says, he is said sometimes to be the founder of a new religion, referring to Abdu'l. Abdu'l always denied referring to being the founder of a new religion, because he always gave that to Baha'u'llah and Baha'u'llah's manifestation, and he never wanted to equate himself with Baha'u'llah. It says, he has upwards of 3 million people following along the lines in which he leads. It is not a new religion, however, because it says there are over 3 million people following the Baha'i Faith. Baha'i sources claim the Baha'i Faith grew under Shoghi Effendi from 100,000 to 400,000. But what they're ignoring is that it shrank from 3 million to 100,000 before it grew to 400,000. So they're trying to portray Shoghi Effendi as somebody who grew the Baha'i Faith. He didn't. If you follow the math, the Baha'i Faith lost 97% of its followers under Shoghi Effendi. But yet they're trying to sit there and say that, oh no, it grew from 100,000 to 400,000. No, it didn't. Best case scenario, it shrank from over 3 million down to 400,000. That is the fruits of what Shoghi Effendi reaped. As the Bible says, watch out for wolves in sheep's clothing. You will know by the fruits that they produce. Plus, here are the numbers given today. It says there are 177,647 registered Baha'is in America. Only 77,290 have good addresses. So less than half have good addresses. Only 57,341 are actually involved. So only a third of the Baha'is who are registered are actually involved. Now, when you become a Baha'i, you have to sign a document and a card declaring that you're a Baha'i. That's how they get that number, 177,647. So these are just the people who signed the cards declaring themselves to be Baha'i. 2/3 of them are going to leave. Now, that doesn't include the people who come into the doors and then turn around and leave, which means over 90% of the people who come through that doors interested in the Baha'i faith, they will leave. And the majority give the same reason for why they left. And the same reason is the Baha'i administrative order, and that's why they leave. That's what Shoghi Effendi set up. And Abdu'l states that the majority vote is what is right. And the majority of Baha'is have rejected the Baha'i administrative order. Because because I was doing a little bit of research on why people are leaving the Baha'i faith, and I found a quote online here, and I think this person says it very well. They've posted on there. For Baha'is in my generation became believers during the exciting and turbulent Vietnam Wars years because we saw that Baha'u'llah offers humanity the clearest direction for our inner spiritual growth and are working for saving the planet. Most of my Baha'i friends in my youth had left the faith, not because they lost faith in the Baha'u'llah or the teachings, but because they were not allowed to express their ideals and activism as Baha'is. And today, over and over again, I hear from friends who are quietly leaving the faith to pursue their ideals in the peace movement and women's movement in the field of ecology, in music and dance, and religious discipline, because they are not allowed to express their commitment to social change, artistic expression, or mystical path in the Baha'i context. Because if you remember from a few slides earlier, it says in the last Old Testament of Abdu'l, you have no right to give your opinion, and you have no right to act on your convictions. It says right here, that is why people are leaving. Only the guardian of the faith, only the universal house of justice. They have to tell you what your opinion is. You have to agree with them, and you have to go along with it. If you do not 100% conform to what they're saying, you will be thrown out of the faith. And that's why people are just quietly leaving, because there's nothing you can say, nothing you can do. That's the fruits of what the Baha'i administrative order Shoghi Effendi put in. Now, here's another thing, the heir to the guardian. Let's go back to the last will and testament of Abdu'l. He is the expounder of the words of God, and after him will succeed the firstborn of his lineal descendants. But then it says a little bit later in part 1, it is incumbent upon the guardian of the cause of God to appoint in his own lifetime him that shall become his successor, that differences may not arise after his passing. He that is appointed must manifest in himself detachment from all worldly things, must be the essence of purity, must show himself in the fear of God, knowledge, wisdom, and learning. Thus should the firstborn of the guardian of the cause not manifest in himself the truth of the words. The child is the secret essence of it. That is, should he not inherit the spiritual within him, the guardian of the cause, and his glorious lineage not be matched with goodly character, then must he, the guardian of the cause of God, choose another branch to succeed him. So either Shoghi Effendi has to have a child who's going to be the firstborn and passes the lineage, or he must appoint an heir. Neither one was done. Shoghi Effendi had no kids, and he did not appoint an heir. Shoghi Effendi failed in his duties. He did not uphold his duties as a guardian. Now, Shoghi Effendi is viewed as infallible. You cannot infallibly fail in your duties. Now, at this point, if he infallibly failed in his duties, that means the last will and testament of Abdu'l cannot be shredded. It has been proven to be a false document because he failed in his duties. If you fail, you cannot be infallible. So you can shred the whole thing right there. Shoghi Effendi is not the guardian, and the Baha'i administrative order is illegitimate. It is not of God. Whole thing is shredded right there. But I'm going to continue to give evidence just for those people who may be questioning it right now. There's another thing from Shoghi Effendi. The structure, importance, implications, benefits, and possibilities of the New World Order cannot be understood at the current time, but only through time will it become obvious. Instead, only the guiding principles underlying the New World Order can be generally outlined. So he said, Shoghi Effendi says right here, we don't know how this whole thing is going to coalesce, but through time, people are going to see the wisdom of what I'm writing here. But here's what Abdu'l said in some answer questions. This is in regard to answering a question about the Trinity. He said, this is the true meaning of the three persons of the Trinity. Otherwise, the foundations of the religion of God will rest upon an illogical proposition which no mind could ever conceive. And how could the mind be required to believe a thing which it cannot conceive? So Shoghi Effendi here says, no, you cannot conceive what's going on. Only through time is it going to become obvious. Abdu'l here says, no, you must be able to understand the writings. If you cannot understand the writings, how can you expect someone to believe it? So no, if you cannot believe it, if you cannot understand what you're believing, it is completely illogical to expect people to believe it. So per Abdu'l, what Shoghi Effendi writes here, the infallible guardian, this is completely illogical. And remember, under the Baha'i Faith, how it's clearly written, to criticize the guardian means to be a covenant breaker, and you will be thrown out of the faith. So based on the current rules in the Baha'i Faith, Abdu'l should be thrown out of the faith for what he said right there. Here's another one. The guardian wishes me to draw the attention of the friends through you that they should be very careful in their public utterance not to mention any political figures. Either side with them or denounce them. This is the first thing to bear in mind. Otherwise, they will involve the friends in political matters, which is infinitely dangerous for the cause. So currently, as a Baha'i, you cannot even mention the name of a world leader. So going down the American presidents, whether it's Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Trump, you can't mention any names of the world leaders right now. So based on what I did right now, I just broke the law according to the Baha'i Faith. However, Baha'u'llah, he wrote letters to world leaders in commenting on their politics. So Baha'u'llah can do it, but we can't. I mean, that's kind of a hypocritical position to be in right there. No, the manifestations, they set the standards on what's acceptable. They don't get to follow one set of rules and everyone else follows a different set of rules. That's not how that works. And plus, Abdu'l and Shoghi Effendi both mentioned Woodrow Wilson and many other world leaders. So again, they can do what we can't. So no, that doesn't make any sense. Plus, how are we supposed to unite the entire world under the Baha'i administrative order while at the same time never mentioning the name of a world leader? It makes literally no sense. This is completely illogical. You can't do it. And the short time I've been in the Baha'i Faith, I'm constantly seeing messages go out saying, stop mentioning the names of world leaders. You cannot put that high level of control on people and successfully unite the world. That's why we are losing over 90% of the people coming in the doors. I mean, it's very obvious what's going on here. Another one, Baha'i Faith explicitly bans the clergy. Yet, Shoghi Effendi set up Hands of the Cause, Knights of Baha'u'llah, local spiritual assemblies, national spiritual assemblies, the Universal House of Justice, and the guardianship. Now, I'm going to get to the Hands of the Cause real quick because Baha'u'llah did use Hands of the Cause. And Abdu'l did appoint Hands of the Cause. But I want to get into exactly what Abdu'l and Baha'u'llah did one thing, while at the same time Shoghi Effendi did another thing. So I want to get into that a little bit. So it says in Abdu'l, 2 April 1912, the Hands of the Cause in the dispensation are not heirs to the name, to any name or title. Rather, as they are sanctified souls, the rays of whose holiness and spirituality throw light on the hearts of all. The hand of the cause is not a title that may be awarded to whomever it may please to have it, nor is it a chair of honor upon which whoever wishes it may sit. And it says in the last Will and Testament of Abdu'l, oh friends, the hands of the cause of God must be nominated and appointed by the guardian in the cause of God. So Abdu'l clearly says right here, this is not a position that can be appointed. But he says right here in the last Will and Testament of Abdu'l, he clearly says this is an appointed position. Now, if Abdu'l wrote the last Will and Testament of Abdu'l in 1906, why did he say this is not an appointed position? He would have known that's what his last Will and Testament said. Or he did not write that. It says a little bit later. The hands of the cause of God must select from their own number 9 persons that shall at all times be occupied in the important services in the work of the guardian of the cause of God. The election of these 9 must be carried either unanimously or by majority from the company of the hands of the cause of God. And these, whether unanimously or by majority vote, must give their assent to the choice of the one whom the guardian of the cause has chosen as his successor. Then it says a little bit later, my object is to show that the hands of the cause of God must be ever watchful, and so soon as they find anyone beginning to oppose and protest against the guardian of the cause, cast him out from the congregation of the people of Baha, and in no wise accept any excuse from him. So, hand of the cause. Hand of the cause is not a title that may be awarded to whomever it may please, to whom have it, nor is it a chair of honor upon which whoever they may wish it. It says explicitly, it says right here, then by the hands of the cause are appointed. That's a contradiction right there. Then it goes on to say that the hands of the cause, that gives them duties and titles. Then it says the hands of the cause must be ever watchful, and anyone who's beginning to oppose them, the protest against the guardian of the cause must be thrown out. That just creates fear and paranoia right there. As I said, Abdu'l said that the House of Justice must be parliamentarian. This is straight secret police, KGB stuff right here. I mean, this is Gestapo stuff right here, where they're being ever watchful, and anyone who may be opposed what's going on, they're kicked out of the Baha'i Faith and declared a covenant breaker. I'm sorry, that's not parliamentarian right there. That's very totalitarian right there. That's what you see in communism. That's what you saw in Nazi Germany right there. There's no way that that should be in the faith, especially one that's claiming to unite the world and claiming to be acting in love. If you're destroying somebody's religion over a difference of opinion, that is not acting in love. And that explicitly goes against every commandment of God. Now, let's continue this a little bit. The obligation of the hands of the cause of God are to diffuse the divine fragrances, to edify the souls of men, to promote learning, to improve character of all men, and to be at all times under the conditions sanctified and detached from earthly things. They must manifest the fear of God by their conduct, their manners, and their deeds, and their words. So again, is continuing to give them more duties and positions. But as Abdu'l said, this is not a title that can be handed out. They do not have duties and positions. Because here's the thing, Abdu'l, the hands of the cause that he gave, they were appointed after they passed away. So it was not a position to be handed out. After they passed away, then they were saying their hands of the cause. So they were not given duties and titles. So no, it was not there. Plus, Baha'u'llah, when he gave the hands of the cause, he did not give them duties and titles. Now, I was seeking for more information on this, but as when I posted this video, 7 January 2022, there have been no documents released by the Baha'i Administrative Order going into detail over what the hands of the cause under Baha'u'llah had. No documents have been released because many documents on the Baha'i Faith still have not been translated because they're sitting in vaults in Haifa, Israel right now, because the Baha'i Administrative Order either cannot or will not get them translated. It's like, I mean, I've tried to translate documents before. It does not take decades to translate that many documents. So either they just can't seem to get their act together, or they infallibly cannot get their act together and get these documents, or they're just not releasing it. My guess is they just infallibly can't get their act together. But without these documents being released, it's impossible to ascertain exactly what Baha'u'llah did with the hands of the cause. Because Abdu'l clearly states this is not in a position to be appointed, and he clearly did not give out his duties and titles. With Baha'u'llah, the documents have not been released, and there's only like one document with one line going into them. So no, it's just you cannot ascertain this, and that's just because the Baha'i Administrative Order either cannot or will not release the documents. My guess is they just, as I said, my guess is they just can't get their act together after decades. Then it goes on to say here later on, for he is after Abdu'l, the guardian of the cause of God, the Afnan, the hands and pillars of the cause, and the beloved of the Lord must obey him and turn to him. He that obeyeth him not had not obeyed God. He that turneth away from him had turned away from God. And he that denieth him had denied the true one. Beware lest anyone falsely interprets these words, and like unto them have broken of the covenant after the day of ascension of Baha'u'llah. Advances pretext. raise the stand and revolt, wax stubborn, open the wide door of false interpretation. So here's the thing though. It says, Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the cause, is the sole interpreter of the word of God here. However, that directly contradicts what both Abdu'l and Baha'u'llah said. Because Baha'u'llah said in the Book of Certitude, thus it is recorded, every knowledge has 70 meanings, of which only one is known amongst the people. So every verse has 70 meanings. This is saying here, no, Shoghi Effendi gets to decide the only meaning of the verse. So that directly contradicts what Baha'u'llah said right there. And Abdu'l says, these verses of the Torah have therefore numerous meanings. So he's saying that these have numerous meanings. And even when Abdu'l goes through and interprets the meaning of the verses, let's take the story of Adam and Eve, for example. He says, these verses have multiple meanings. I'm giving you one. I mean, paraphrasing what he said, of course. But even when Abdu'l interpreted, he'd go, no, these have multiple meanings to them. This is saying that no, there is one meaning, and that's whatever Shoghi Effendi decides. Then here's another one from Shoghi Effendi. He said, any person considering to become a believer must make up his mind to give up drink, referring to alcohol. Well, it says, do not approach it. That is, you must not drink it. A believer is expected to accept the law of Baha'u'llah without questioning it. But here's the thing though, we're not allowed to question it, yet we have the independent search for the truth. Seriously? The independent search for the truth is all about questioning it. The Book of Certitude, that was one of the most famous writings by Baha'u'llah. It was written because the uncle of the Bab, because the Bab was a manifestation. As I said, he was the spiritual return of Elijah. The uncle of the Bab was questioning whether or not the Bab was a manifestation. So if you can question a manifestation and another manifestation responds to it, you can question this. So when Shoghi Effendi says, a believer is expected to accept the law of Baha'u'llah without questioning it, that directly violates everything Baha'u'llah said. So no, this is not in line. I said, if you can question manifestation and manifestation responds to a question, you can question them. And plus, some answer questions, well, one of Abdu'l's most famous works, it's called Some Answer Questions because he was answering questions. So no, that directly contradicts what Baha'u'llah and what Abdu'l taught. Here's another one. Last will and testament of Abdu'l, the arch covenant breaker. O ye that stand fast and firm in the covenant, the sinner of sedition, the prime mover of mischief, Mirza Muhammad Ali hath passed out from under the shadow of the cause, hath broke the covenant, hath falsified the holy text, hath inflicted grievous loss upon the true faith of God, hath scattered his people, hath with bitter rancor endeavored to hurt Abdu'l and hath assailed with the utmost enmity with this servant of the sacred threshold. Because this guy here, he was Mirza Muhammad Ali, he was the half brother of Abdu'l. Now he's always kind of known as a mischief maker, but while Abdu'l was living, he never threw his half brother out of the faith. In the last will and testament of Abdu'l, it declares his half brother to be a covenant breaker. Baha'i sources claim that this was written in 1906. Abdu'l passed away in 1921. So why couldn't Abdu'l face his half brother man to man while he was still alive? Why did he have to wait for his last will and testament to overthrow him? Because it's not like he did anything new after Abdu'l passed away. So why was what Mirza Muhammad Ali did so grievous then that it had to be declared a covenant breaker, but it wasn't grievous before? This makes literally no sense. So it's like, you mean to tell me Abdu'l could not sit down, face his brother man to man, and tell him that, yeah, you need to stop this or I'm going to label you a covenant breaker. He had to throw it in his last will and testament, wait 15 years, and then never give his half brother a chance to defend himself. It's like, seriously? It's like that. There's no way Abdu'l wrote this. Now, if you want to take a break, this is a really good spot to take a break. But otherwise, I'm just going to continue. Now, another thing, Daniel chapter 11. It says, going down verse by verse. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is complete, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his fathers. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the lands at a price. So let's start going down verse by verse. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is complete, for what has been determined must take place. And it says in the book Through Pilgrim's Eyes, Shoghi Effendi made it clear that he was not the master and that things are changing. In one of his letters, he wrote, "It is difficult to break with some of the customs and traditions of the past and familiarize the vast number of Baha'is, so diverse with their outlook and conception, with the necessary changes and requirements of this new phase in the history of the cause." It says, the king will do as he pleases. Again, he's just doing whatever he wants. He has no regard for Abdu'l or what Baha'u'llah put in place. Again, they're breaking and doing new stuff. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and say unheard things against the God of gods. If that last will and testament was a forged document, which I've shown evidence that it is, and we'll get into much more evidence that it was later on, then yes, that's a pretty unheard of thing to say against God. Because what he's doing is he's overruling the teachings of Abdu'l and Baha'u'llah, the messenger of God, the manifestation. He's overruling them and doing what he wants. He will be successful until the time of wrath is complete, for what has been determined must take place. Time of wrath was 1335 in Daniel 12, verse 12. That's the year 1957, which is when Shoghi Effendi passed away. As that going down, he will exalt himself. Now, okay, here's the thing I want to point out, because I'm going through the book Through Pilgrim's Eyes. Right now in the Baha'i Faith, anyone who wants to publish anything about the Baha'i Faith, you do not have right to publish it on your own. Whatever you publish, you have to send it to the Baha'i Administrative Order, Universal Justice in Haifa, Israel. They have to read it, make sure it's in line with the teachings, then publish it. And if they do not agree with what you're writing, you cannot publish it. So everything I'm quoting here has been approved by the Baha'i Administrative Order. I want to make that very clear. So when I'm going through here, quoting these books, this has been vetted and this has been approved by the teachings of the Universal House of Justice in Haifa, Israel. And remember, they are infallible. So when we're going through here, I want you to keep that in mind. Then he will exalt himself. It says, going through Pilgrim's Eyes, page 19. He looked like an angel, and he certainly chanted like one. What in the world does an angel look like? And what in the world does an angel chant like? This is referring to Shoghi Effendi here. Page 30. If he were not so entirely selfless, pure-minded, and humble, the tremendous power and influence might mislead him. I mean, but considering that's a forged document, you can just kind of throw that out the window. Singular sweetness of countenance and character, possessing extraordinary brilliance of mind and procession, it seems to me, for one of his years. The expression of adoration and humbleness combined with his majesty cannot be put into words. Lady Blomfeld was highly impressed with the young guardian's rapidly increasing strength and wisdom. It is so wonderful as to be miraculous. These men here are amazed at the wisdom he shows on the administration of the cause. Shoghi Effendi, as a man, was very humble. Shoghi Effendi discusses the affairs and conditions of the cause with astonishing openness and frankness. With a modesty and simplicity, which one must see in order to appreciate, he listens to every suggestion with utmost courtesy and seriousness, and then brings to bear upon it the light of his wonderful lucid mind. The spirit of criticism is abhorrent to Shoghi Effendi. Now, actually, when I get into this, when I'm going through, going to how Shoghi Effendi just starts attacking everyone who disagrees with him. Keep that verse in mind right there, that the spirit of criticism is abhorrent to Shoghi Effendi, because he clearly does not follow that, and you're going to see that a little bit later. Shoghi Effendi solved problems in a very methodical way. The afternoon's walk with Shoghi Effendi and those exalted statements heard from no less a person that Abdu'l's successor were like seeds that dear teacher had planted in my mind and heart. And now each one was bursting forth into expression of these new ideas. Ready to listen to the opinions of others and often questions those at the table as to what they think about certain questions, he speaks very directly and frankly with a very dynamic mind. But if you remember the last one testament of Abdu'l, it says, you have no right to your individual opinion, nor do you have any right to act on your convictions. But it says he's ready to listen to the opinions of others. Like, no, he isn't. Shoghi Effendi chanted slowly and with wonderful sweetness. He is so simple, so young, so unassuming, and yet he had a power to win one to the cause and his service that is a little short miraculous. But keep in mind, 97% of people left the faith in their Shoghi Effendi, so that's just not even true right there. The Vali, guardian of the cause, is a young and energetic man. He is stately, dignified, and his shining face reflects purity and love. He is told of his tact, brilliance, and quick and gentle wit as he sat with visiting friends. Every time I'm with him, I'm so happy. He radiates joy and love to everybody. His mind seems all comprehensive. He grasps the big problems and always knows just what to do. His translations are great. He's a most charming young man, looking about 30, small, slightly featured, Persian in his general appearance, dressed in sober black robes of composed, courteous manner. He seems to talk with every known language and spoke to me with willing fluency and conviction of the aims of his movement. Now, I just stopped here at page 100 because we are only a quarter of the way through this book. The book is 410 pages long, and these are just the extravagant quotes I was pulling out. It wasn't even the main quotes. And Baha'is who do not Baha'is will be labeled covenant breakers if we do not accept Shoghi Effendi. So you exalt him or you are thrown out of the faith. You exalt him or you cannot publish your works. That's what the Baha'i Faith is right now. And so we are required to say stuff like this. And here's another book. I just took a picture of it. This is another book. His Great Faith, The Guardian and the Man, his humility and selflessness, his involuntary connection with the divine source, his eagerness, his perseverance, his generosity. We literally have full chapters dedicated just to exalting this guy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It says, the king will exalt himself in the Bible. Now, here's another thing I wanted to go into right there about gaslighting definition. I want to put this definition on here. Gaslighting is loosely defined as making someone question the reality. So sociopaths and narcissists consistently transgress social mores, break laws, and exploit others, but typically are also convincing liars, sometimes charming ones who consistently deny wrongdoings. So that's the definition of gaslighting. So I want to put it on here because pulling out the same book, I'm giving you gaslighting examples because this is referring to Abdu'l Hussein Avari. Finding himself isolated and impotent, he was reduced to writing letters to Shoghi Effendi using offensive language and vowing to destroy the faith of Baha'u'llah altogether. So if you didn't agree with Shoghi Effendi, you were just isolated and impotent. You were destroying the faith of Baha'u'llah. That's gaslighting right there. Another one. It didn't take long before those with spiritual eyes began to see the wisdom of Abdu'l's appointment of Shoghi Effendi as the guardian of the cause. So it's like, if you don't agree with Shoghi Effendi, his appointment, you just don't have spiritual eyes. That's gaslighting right there. Shoghi Effendi said, the master has not left any latitude for personal opinion. It is not a matter of reason. It is a matter of faith. So if you have strong faith, you're going to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, you just don't have strong faith. Somebody here has to be wrong, and that person is clearly you. Because last one, that's what Abdu'l says, I'm infallible. You have no right to your opinion. You have no right to your conviction. So you just don't have strong enough faith if you don't agree with me. Another one. He has labored in vain, oblivious of the fact that all the pomp and power of royalty, all the concerted efforts of the mightiest potentates of Islam, all the ingenious devices to which the cruelest torture mongers of a cruel race have for well nigh a century resorted, have proved one and all impotent to stem the tide of the beloved faith or extinguish its flame. So it's like, oh, if you're fighting against me, you're just impotent. You're a cruel race. You can't do anything. Again, more gaslighting. Another one. Unfortunately, some of the older Baha'is had a different concept of what should happen at the conference. They wanted the interim body to be elected at the conference. Upon learning in this of this in December, Shoghi Effendi immediately canceled the conference because it would be a source of confusion, misunderstanding, and even controversy. The lurking danger he saw, as described by Abdu'l Ruhi Khanam, was of immature people not yet steeped in understanding of the administrative order. But he was unfolding and building, assuming a rank of power they were holding, most certainly incapable of safely holding. So if you don't agree with everything I'm about to tell you, this is just going to be a source of confusion. You're just not understanding it. You're just creating controversy if you don't agree with what I have to say. If you don't agree with me, you're just immature and not steeped in the understanding of the Baha'i administrative order. And you're just not capable of safely holding what I'm about to tell you. Again, that's gaslighting. And many of the older Baha'is, that's what he's saying about them, because they knew the teachings of Baha'u'llah. They knew the teachings of Abdu'l, and they did not agree with what Shoghi Effendi is putting in here. Because I showed you examples how what he was doing directly contradicted the Baha'i Faith. And again, one thing about narcissism is narcissists, they have a very, very high degree of control. Because here's just a few of the rules that Baha'is have to follow right now. Baha'is cannot vote in elections if party identification is required. Baha'is cannot run for public office. Now, to be fair on this one, technically you can, but you cannot run as like a Democrat or Republican. You have to run as independent. And then they stick a bunch of rules on there. So you technically can run, but they just have so many rules in place. It's literally impossible. So I put it on there. Baha'is can't run for public office because it's effectively impossible to do. So, but it's technically not illegal. But I want to be sure I'm fair on that one. Baha'is cannot take part in movements that may be involved in politics, like the women's rights movements, the civil rights movements. You can't take part in those because Democrats and Republicans might be involved, and you can't have any sort of identification involved. So you can't take part in anything. Baha'is must seek approval before publishing any material regarding the faith to ensure accurate information. And as I said, anything published has to be vetted by the Universal House of Justice, the Baha'i Administrative Order, because they want to ensure the information is accurate. Okay, do they make sure it's accurate, or were they trying to cover something up? I don't know, something like the last Will Testament of Abdu'l was forged, and they wouldn't make sure that the truth wasn't getting out. I'd put my money right there. Baha'is have no right to their individual opinion or to act on their individual convictions, as stated in the last Will Testament of Abdu'l. Baha'is must consult the guardian for everything. Baha'is must abstain from making critical comments of governments. Even though Baha'u'llah was critical of governments in his letters to world leaders. Local membership must contain a list of names of those who obey the rules, because if you do not obey the rules, they'll start off by taking away your right to vote in Baha'i elections. They have other things, and ultimately, they'll the Universal House of Justice, they can throw you out of the faith, declare you a covenant breaker. And it's local spiritual assemblies who must keep a list of those people who do not obey the rules. Baha'is cannot apply for membership in any church or religious group. Hands to the cause must be looked for any signs of disobedience. And I think this is personally one of the most deplorable ones out there. Baha'is cannot volunteer for combat positions in the military. It's like, so, because right now in the Baha'i Faith, you can only volunteer for like medical stuff. But it's like, okay, one, you cannot make an army of doctors and lawyers. Baha'u'llah explicitly authorizes Baha'is to serve in the military. He explicitly states there should be a standing military, but we can't serve in the combat arms. So if we can't serve in combat arms, what gives us the right to lead? Why would people support unifying under the Baha'i Faith if we're going to stand back and not lead? If we're not going to stand in the trenches, in the mud with those we're supposed to be claiming to lead? Well, why would we do something like that? That makes literally no sense. You cannot have a military of just doctors. Now, I do want to make one thing clear there. There's nothing wrong with being medical. If you want to say, look, I do not feel comfortable pulling the trigger. I don't think I can do something like this. So I want to be a conscientious objector, and I will volunteer for a medical position. There is nothing wrong with that. I 100% applaud that. I've known people in the medical field, in the military, who did stuff like that. I will never look down there, and I will never criticize anyone who does anything like that. Because even Even when the Medal of Honor winners, he was a conscientious objector. He served as a medical physician, supporting soldiers in the front line. 100% honorable. I will never criticize anything like that. But there is something wrong with an institution coming down saying that you cannot volunteer for a combat position, especially the Baha'i Faith coming down saying they cannot volunteer for combat arms after Baha'u'llah explicitly states each country should have a standing military. They cannot overrule a manifestation like that. Plus, there are also many other rules that Baha'is have to follow. And failures to follow the rules you will be labeled a covenant breaker by the Universal House of Justice. And then here's another thing. Everyone accepted Shoghi Effendi because it says in the book, the will of Abdu'l was read and everybody consented. Shoghi Effendi is the guardian of the cause. It says in another book approved by the Baha'i Administrative Board called The Prophet's Daughter. The news of the explicit provisions contained in the will for appointment of Shoghi Effendi as guardian of the cause and expander of the text was received with joy by the entire Baha'i world. Again, everybody loved it. It also says later, Baha'is in the East and West embraced with will and the testament of Abdu'l and accepted his provisions. But here's the problem. If you remember back to Mahmoud's diary, the Baha'i Faith lost 97% of the people under Shoghi Effendi. And then if you read it just a few pages later, covenant breakers took the keys to the shrine of Baha'u'llah and wouldn't give it back to Shoghi Effendi. So when the last will and testament was read, everybody consented, except for those who didn't. And then in 1926, Shoghi Effendi actually he was getting flooded with so many letters from America because people opposing what Shoghi Effendi was doing that it actually caused Shoghi Effendi to go into a nervous breakdown. So America was just so adamantly opposed to what Shoghi Effendi was doing, they caused him to go into a nervous breakdown. God bless America. And then the conference in 1929 had to be canceled due to the opposition of Shoghi Effendi from among the Baha'is. But remember, everyone consented it. Everyone was ecstatic. It was embraced throughout the East and the West, except for the 97% of the people who left the faith, except for the covenant breakers, except for the people in America who flooded Shoghi Effendi with letters, causing him to go to a nervous breakdown, except for the conference that had to be canceled due to opposition from Shoghi Effendi. And plus, today's numbers are no better. So it's like, but remember, everyone accepted it. And then it says, I thought what that should say is, once everyone who disagreed was declared a covenant breaker or left the faith, then everyone consented. That would be a much more accurate, honest statement to make. And then I thought this would be a great place for a Stalin quote right here. It says, it doesn't matter what the vote says. What matters is who counts the vote. So 97% of the people left the faith. Covenant breakers immediately afterwards took the keys to the shrine of Baha'u'llah. Shoghi Effendi went to a nervous breakdown. Conference had to be canceled in 1929 due to opposition to Shoghi Effendi. But everyone consented. Everyone loved it because it doesn't matter what the vote says. The Baha'i Administrative Order, they're the ones counting the vote, and they are only going to count people who agree with them. And that's what they did right there. So I thought that was a great place for a Stalin quote right there. Because the thing though, a narcissist's ego cannot handle rejection. Because soon after the last will and testament of Abdu'l was read, Shoghi Effendi left the faith for 6 months because the flood of letters was so strong. Now the Baha'i Administrative Order claims as, he didn't know what was coming. He knew what was coming, just he wasn't ready for it. But no, that's not what's going on because a narcissist's ego cannot handle rejection. Because after Shoghi Effendi became the guardian of the cause, there was a very, very strong opposition to him, despite the claims by the Baha'i Administrative Order. Because Baha'i Administrative Order, they're not telling you the truth. And the flood of letters was so strong that it actually caused him to go into a breakdown in 1926 because a narcissist's ego cannot handle rejection. Now, I'm going to read him a little passage here. This is called Shoghi Effendi, Through Pilgrim's Eyes, Volume 1, 1926. And what it says, it is generally known in America that our beloved was forced at an hour's notice to leave Haifa because he was threatened with what in in the case of an ordinary person, might be called a nervous breakdown from overwork. The state of his health, his chronic exhaustion is, I am convinced, a matter of genuine concern to every true believer, as it is to the members of the holy household. 80% of his time is spent reading and answering letters, 90% of which are purely personal. We see from his statistics that 20% of his time is left for the administrative work of the cause, entertaining guests, meeting pilgrims, translating, thinking, reading, reflecting, meditating, planning, creating for direct and intimate contact with the detailed working of 9 national assemblies, and for the multifarious considerations connected with this unsettled treasuring phase of the cause, through which we are at present passing. The fact that under this ceaseless pressure, there is not one moment left for recreation, exercise, or personal expression of any description, clearly indicates that his power to go on functioning and enduring are entirely superhuman. It is any wonder that my beloved friends of God that our cause was nearly crushed under this stupendous avalanche of personal correspondence. So what caused in soon after Shoghi Effendi became guarding the cause, he had to leave Switzerland for 6 months. Not because he wasn't ready for it, but his ego could not handle rejection. He couldn't understand how somebody could oppose him. He goes into a mental breakdown here because the flood of letters from America opposing him, what he's doing. A narcissist's ego cannot understand how someone can disagree with them. That's how their mind works. Because here's what a leader would have done. A leader would have gone to America, sat down with people from America and said, this is what's going on, answered the questions, answered the objections, united the people under one cause, and moved forward. That's what a leader would have done. And then we see in 1929, that was the chance to clear up a lot of the confusion, what was going on. But he didn't do that. He canceled the conference because, they're just not mature enough. They just don't agree with me. They just don't understand this new course we're taking. Because a leader would have sat down, had the conference, answered the objections, and went forward together in unity. But he didn't. Instead, he canceled the conferences because his ego could not understand how somebody could understand him. And he just sat there using his position to start gaslighting everybody. Look what you're causing me. Your objections to the faith is causing me to go into a breakdown. The only reason I can go as far as I am because I'm superhuman. Your objections, your concerns are violating the last rule and testament of Abdu'l. You have no right to your opinion. You have no right to act on your individual convictions. Because you're writing letters to me objecting what I'm doing, I don't have time to administer the faith. I don't have time to meet the pilgrims. I don't have time to translate the text. This is all because of you. That's gaslighting. That's narcissism right there. And that's exactly what Shoghi Effendi did right here. As I said, God bless America for doing that to Shoghi Effendi. And then here's another thing that we have. Shoghi Effendi can read your mind. It says, Habib remembered that this was his power. He, referring to Shoghi Effendi, could read your heart, what you were thinking. He would talk to you and give us the answer that you were thinking. No, Shoghi Effendi actually cannot read your mind because that directly violates the harmony of science and religion. So whoever approved of this in the Baha'i administrative order obviously did not know about the text. They did not know about the harmony of science and religion. Because here's what Abdu'l said regarding miracles. He said, once must pause a while to reflect. If the outward meaning of this account were to be attributed to a wise man, all men of wisdom would assuredly deny it, arguing that such a scheme and arrangement could not possibly have proceeded from such a person. So no wise man can believe that the guardian of the faith could read your mind. That directly violates the harmony of science and religion. So, but yet, in the Baha'i Faith, we are required to exalt the guardian to the point where we are required to believe that he can read your mind. I mean, it's just, that goes directly against everything that was ever taught by Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l. But again, the symptom of going over the symptoms of narcissism requires a very high degree of control. I've already gone over that. The aversion to criticism, because a narcissist cannot handle somebody criticizing him. So again, people rejected him, and he left Switzerland for 6 months. I read you that text over how he would sit there and gaslight the American Baha'is when they were criticizing him. He would cancel conferences due to disunity, but no, they just didn't agree with him. The gaslighting, I already showed that to you. The lying, everyone supported his guardianship. It's like, no, they didn't. That's not even close to being true. And it's a flat out lie to say it. But yet that does not stop the infallible Baha'i administrative order from lying about it. Narcissists, they must be exalted. Again, I already showed you exactly those 4 slides of exalting him. Because they cannot delegate tasks. Narcissists cannot delegate tasks because they have to do everything themselves. Because even the Baha'i administrative order acknowledges that Shoghi Effendi wrote many of the letters himself. Because in a narcissist's mind, no one can do the tasks properly. They have to do everything themselves. Because when you try to do something to help them, oh, you're just not doing it right. You mess it up, I have to do it myself. That's how a narcissistic mind works. Another one, they cannot handle rejection. That's the same thing to the aversion to criticism. Because it bans all criticism of the guardian and all criticism of the Universal House of Justice. They cannot accept responsibility. Again, they can't lead. Because rather than going to America, clarifying what was happening, rather than holding the conference, clarifying, oh, you're just not mature enough to understand what I'm saying. You just haven't learned about the administrative order yet. You're just causing disunity. Again, he can't accept that he was the problem. Another thing, narcissists draw energy by making others submissive to them. Because you have to feed their ego. That's how they're energized in life. And explicitly says in the last movement of Abdu'l, you must be lowly in the presence of the guardian. Again, that's a very narcissistic thing to do. And again, they must be viewed as superhuman. And I read that text directly in there that explicitly says Shoghi Effendi must be viewed as superhuman because he's taking the time to respond to all your criticism. You just need to shut up and do what he says, as the last will of the testament of Abdu'l says. So these are all symptoms of narcissism right here. But let's go back to what the Bible says, Daniel 11. The king will do as he pleases. Already went over that. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard things against the God of gods. Just went over that. He will be successful until the time of wrath is complete. For what has been determined must take place. About tells us, 1335. That's year 1957. That's when Shoghi Effendi passed away. He will show no regard for the God of his fathers or for the one desired by women. As I showed you, no regard for the God of his fathers. We're doing things a new way, and I already demonstrated that. Nor will, or for the one desired by women. Shoghi Effendi had no kids, even though the last will and testament of Abdu'l said that he was supposed to have an heir that would must succeed him as the guardian. But he didn't. He had no kids. He had no regard for the God of women. Nor will he regard any God, but will exalt himself above all. And I just showed that. So that's a perfect fit for Shoghi Effendi right there. It says, instead of them, he will honor a God of fortresses, a God unknown to his fathers. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. Last will and testament of Abdu'l. The mighty stronghold shall remain impregnable and safe through obedience to him who is the guardian of the cause. He will honor a God of fortresses, the mighty stronghold. That's the current Baha'i administrative order right there. A God unknown to his fathers, but it says fortresses. It says, by this, last will and testament of Abdu'l. By this house is meant the universal house of justice. That is, in all countries, a secondary house of justice must be instituted. And these secondary house of justices must elect the members of the universal one. Again, because of the Baha'i administrative order, they have the universal house of justice, which is Haifa, Israel. They have their national spiritual assemblies. I believe there's 9 of them right now, and the one in America is currently located in Chicago. And then they have the local spiritual assemblies. Those are the fortresses right there. He will honor a God of fortresses, a God unknown to his father. This Baha'i administrative order is not of God. This is of the Antichrist. This is the abomination of desolation that we are warned about in Daniel 12. And he will honor them with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. Mount Carmel looks really nice right now. Those national spiritual assemblies look really nice right now. If you ever look at if you ever look at them, if you ever look at pictures of them. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying it shouldn't look that way. Actually, honestly, I think it should. I think God should get the best. So I support them looking like that. The best should go to God. But here's where I'll disagree. When we are losing over 90% of the people in the faith, priority should be going to helping the poor. Priority should be going to keeping people in the faith. Secondary should be going to making those buildings look nice. So Yes, I agree. Those buildings should look nice. The best should go to God, but priority should go to helping the people, not to serving the administrative order. And that's where I disagree with him on. And then, well, let's take the greatest holy leaf, the one I believe helped Shoghi Effendi forge a document. Under such conditions, he trained into with his own hand, fostered a number of souls who could stand as mighty fortress protecting the cause and as an armor plate for the Ark of the Covenant. Again, he had the fortress of God right there, which is the Baha'i administrative order, a God unknown to his fathers. And as I said, those buildings look really nice. And I don't oppose them looking nice, just priority should be going to the people and helping the poor. Secondary should be going to make those buildings look nice. It says, he will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign God and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land as price. He will attack the mightiest fortresses. That's the fortress of God right there. As I said, this is the abomination of desolation. It's a direct attack on the fortress of God. So he's attacking the mightiest fortresses and attacking everyone who disagrees with him. Because everyone who disagrees with Shoghi Effendi, he threw them all out of the faith. Or they just left the faith on their own. That's why they lost 97% of the people in the Baha'i Faith. It says, and he will greatly honor those who acknowledge them, like the Bahi'a Khanum, the greatest holy leaf. She helped him forge that document, and she was appointed as head of the faith in the absence of Shoghi Effendi, and she was the right-hand person of Shoghi Effendi. He honored the people who helped him. And then in 1951, he formed the International Baha'i Council. Again, they're honoring those who support him. If you didn't support him, you were thrown out of the faith, declared a covenant breaker, or you just left the faith on your own. It says, he will make them rulers over many people and will distribute the land as price. These are the hands of the cause right here. Because Suther Maxwell and Mason Remy, they were the hands of the cause for the Holy Land, referring to Israel. Then we handled the cause for Persia, modern day Iran. We had the cause for the American continent and the hands of the cause for the European continent. He'll make them rulers over many people and will distribute the lands at a price. And that's exactly what he did right there. And Abdu'l said, the hands of the cause is not a title to be handed out. Abdu'l did not hand it out as a title. And as I said, as of 7 January when I posted this, the Baha'i administrative order has not released the information regarding the circumstances of Baha'u'llah's hands of the cause. So I cannot ascertain what Baha'u'llah did regarding them. It goes on to say, Daniel chapter 11, at the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and will sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom and Moab and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Numidians in submission. But reports from the east and north will alarm him, and he will set out in great rage to destroy and annihilate many people. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end and no one will help him. So let's break this down verse by verse. I'm calling this the Baha'i Civil War because despite the false claims from the Baha'i administrative order that everyone united, everyone clearly did not unite. Daniel 11 verse 40. At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. Because there was an Armenian Baha'i whom by the name of Fahik led the scientific and literature society in Cairo in the south, and he refused to submit to the Baha'i administrative order. And this turned into an enormous dispute between the Armenian Baha'i and the Baha'i administrative order. Again, the king of the south will engage him in battle. And then the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and great fleet of ships. Because Ruth White, she really broke off and she formed the Free Baha'i Faith, which I personally identify with the Free Baha'i Faith. Ruth White published many books denouncing the Baha'i administrative order. And she was the one who had the last will and testament of Abdu'l examined by a handwriting expert and declared to be a forgery. And so she was really the one who heavily went against what Shoghi Effendi was doing. And that's why it says she will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. Because as I said, I'm going to get into exactly why I believe that this was a forged document. Because Ruth White, she challenged the authenticity of the last known testament of Abdu'l. She hired Charles Mitchell Ainsworth to study the text. Just going, here's a little bit of my biography. Ainsworth was a British chemist and forensic scientist who made a special study of the microscope and a chemical study of the handwriting. He gave testimony for ink used by German spies, and his work was used to show Mary Queen of Scots did not write the letter which led to her execution. In other words, he was the world's best handwriting analyst. They literally rewrote British history based on his work. They literally found German spies guilty based on his work. He was the world's best. The Baha'i Administrative Order would not release the documents, the original document for the last will and testament of Abdu'l. All they would do was send photocopies. So what Ruth White did is she took the photocopy and sent it to this guy and asked, I would like you to go over this text and we'll see if it's a document. His preliminary report, pending inspections of the originals, was that the last will and testament of Abdu'l was a forgery. Now, he said, I want to see the original documents before I make my final decision. However, Shoghi Effendi would not send the original documents over to him. Why? Because he had all Shoghi Effendi had to do was like, no, this is authentic. I'm going to send the original over. He'll inspect it, and there's no doubt in my mind it's going to come back as authentic. But he didn't do it. Why? Instead, what he did is he sent him copies to lesser, more qualified handwriting experts, got them to agree with them. And then he said, Shoghi Effendi's response was, the friends of the faith, however, should avoid hurt feelings and abstain from provocation. Oh, how generous of you, Shoghi Effendi. I've read the reports from Ruth White, and I've read the reports from Shoghi Effendi. This had nothing to do with hurt feelings. So to say this has anything to do with hurt feelings, that's a flat out lie right there. That's gaslighting. That's a narcissistic thing to do right there. And we should just abstain from provocation. If there's a credible challenge, the last thing you want to do is ignore it. Because at that point, all you're doing is giving fuel to the fire, unless he's trying to hide something. And it was soon after this that Shoghi Effendi declared Ruth White to be a covenant breaker. But here's the thing, though. This is why I think it is. Which is why I think that this was forged. All he had, as I said, all he had to do was send the original copy to Charles Mitchell Ainsworth. He wouldn't do it. Instead, he knew the lesser ones, lied about Ruth White, gaslit her, threw her out of the faith. That's his response was. That is not the response of somebody who's telling the truth. That is the response of somebody who is caught in a lie and is trying to show it up, is trying to cover it up. So Shoghi Effendi is not the guardian of the faith. That document is a forged document, and the response right there proves it. He continues. He will also invade the beautiful Holy Land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Numidians in submission. But the beautiful Holy Land is Israel. Shoghi Effendi, as I said, he had that dispute with the Armenian Baha'i in Egypt, and they eventually submitted to the Baha'i Administrative Order. So Egypt will not escape. They were not able to escape them. And Egypt was the first Islamic country to recognize the Baha'i Faith. That was an enormous victory for Shoghi Effendi, because now you're getting Islam, who is beginning to recognize the Baha'i Faith. It says, he will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Numidians in submission. Biblically, the Libyans and Numidians, that was the upper Nile region with Egypt. So they were able to, so Egypt was the first country to recognize the Baha'i Faith. Enormous victory for Shoghi Effendi. And many countries, they have national spiritual assemblies now. It says, many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. Edom, Moab, and Ammon, those aren't literal countries anymore. Edom, Moab, and Ammon are spiritual symbols for the various sects, like the Reform Baha'is, the Unitarian Baha'is, and the Free Baha'is. Because not all the Baha'is submit to Shoghi Effendi, despite the lies from the Baha'i Administrative Order. So, but that, as we got for there, it says, the reports from the east and north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great race to destroy and annihilate many. Ruth White is the north, and the last will and testament was declared to be a forgery. We already went over that. Ahmed Sohr maintained being a Baha'i, and the Baha'i, despite rejecting the guardianship of Shoghi Effendi. So what the Baha'i Administrative Order and Shoghi Effendi did is they took it to the courts, and they tried to claim that no, Ahmed Sohr does not acknowledge the Baha'i Administrative Order, so he cannot claim himself to be a Baha'i. And the judge ruled that the Baha'i Administrative Order cannot claim a monopoly over religion because that is a violation of the First Amendment, freedom of religion. And then Shoghi Effendi and the Baha'i Administrative Order appealed the decision, and the judge upheld their decision. So now Shoghi Effendi does not have complete control of the Baha'i faith because Ahmed Sohr, he was from the East. He was from modern day Iran, Persia. And he's maintaining being Baha'i despite despite not accepting the guardianship. And that's very alarming to him. And not only does he do it, not only can he do nothing about it, the United States courts sided with Ahmed Sohr because he's saying Shoghi Effendi violates the First Amendment, freedom of religion. As I said, God bless America. So Shoghi Effendi declared them covenant breakers. And here's where we kind of start to see a little shift in Shoghi Effendi, because the Holy Mother, Mahira Khanum, passed away in 1938. Well, the Greatest Holy Leaf was already passed away. Mason Remy was not there. Dr. Farid, he wasn't there because he's a covenant breaker. So some of the writings of Shoghi Effendi at this time start saying that he starts acting very paranoid, like, I can't trust anybody. I don't know who's with me and who's against me. The only person I can trust here is my wife. But here's the thing, though. If he was a guardian for 17 years before the Holy Mother passed away, why could he trust nobody? I mean, something's off there. He's been the guardian. So unless there's a deeper secret there going on that he was covering up, like the last will and testament of Abdu'l has a forgery, and the last person who knew, who was with me, just passed away. Unless that's what's going on, there's no reason to act like that. No, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mourn or death. But to go into a state of paranoia like that, where the only person I can trust is my wife, you got something else going on there. And probably the only reason that he went into there to begin with is because that's where he had the challenges with Ruth White over the authenticity, because she sent it out to everybody saying this guy's not the guardian. So he had to go into a state of, okay, who thinks I'm that document's forgery? Who's with me? Who can I trust? Who can I control? That's the state of mind that he went into right there. And if the Holy Mother knew that's the last person he could trust, that would explain why he went into that state of mind afterwards. And it was soon afterwards, Shoghi Effendi declared all of his relatives to be he declared them all to be covenant breakers. He started throwing everyone out who disagreed with him. It says, he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. So that's fulfillment of that prophecy right there. And it lines up with the passing of the Holy Mother. So that's one that's really interesting. Because here, kind of going back to the last will and testament of Abdu'l, I want to go into the key behavior changes right here. Shoghi Effendi does not go to America in 1912, and he's very distraught to the point he's losing weight. There's no reason, it's okay to be disappointed. That's a normal reaction. Be so distraught that you're losing weight, that's not normal. Mason Remy pledges his loyalty to Abdu'l in 1912. But as we know, Mason Remy intended to usurp the guardianship later on, so we know he was lying. Again, you're seeing behavioral changes here. Dr. Farid becomes erratic after returning from America in 1913-1914 timeframe, which is when Dr. Farid, which is when he was declared a covenant breaker for defying Abdu'l and meeting go with Mason Remy. Again, you're seeing behavioral changes. Shoghi Effendi does not see Mason Remy until Abdu'l passes away, which is 8 years later. And as I said, the secret power of the lost one is at work, and it will. They're waiting for this one holds it back to be gone. Then the lost one will be revealed, which is when Shoghi Effendi was revealed. But Shoghi Effendi and Mason Remy, they're really good friends with each other. So to not see each other, it's like, why do they not see each other? That makes no sense. And then after Abdu'l passes away, Shoghi Effendi is so distraught, he cannot get out of his bed for days. But it's like, it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to sad to mourn. It's okay to mourn. It's okay, and it's okay to do that for a few days. But to be so distraught that you can't get out of bed for days, that's not normal for someone in their 20s. Just like it wasn't normal for him to lose so much weight. You got something else going on here. Because if he's that distraught, Who's going to question the authenticity of the last Old Testament of Abdu'l? Then, Mason Remy dreads returning to Haifa after Abdu'l passes away. Why? I mean, unless he had something to do with the forging of a document, there's no reason to be afraid of the covenant breakers, as was written. Shoghi Effendi said that his wife was the only one he could trust after the Holy Mother passes away. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Unless she was the last one who was with Shoghi Effendi at the time, and when she passed away, then it just literally makes no sense. And then Baha'u'llah's only daughter, the greatest holy leaf, she was Shoghi Effendi's right-hand person. So why did she get that position on Shoghi Effendi? And then Mason Remy, he was eventually appointed and handled the cause for the Holy Land. So he was near Shoghi Effendi the whole time. So he was probably the last person left alive who would have known the truth, that was a forged document. And then after Mason Remy passes away, he attempts to usurp the guardianship and declare himself guardian. I mean, it worked for Shoghi Effendi. Why wouldn't it work for him? None of this makes sense unless you're dealing with the forged document, and these were the people who knew the document was forged. Otherwise, none of these moves make any sense. This has to be a forged document. Now, finishing off here, he will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain, yet he will come to his end and no one will help him. Shoghi Effendi set himself up at Mount Carmel. That's the beautiful holy mountain. That's the New Jerusalem right there. And between the seas, that's between the Dead Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. So we have it right there. Yet he will come to his end and no one will help him. Shoghi Effendi died so quick, no one could help him. It came as an absolute shock to the Baha'i Faith when Shoghi Effendi passed away, because in 1957, he got sick. Boom, done. He was dead. It was shocking to everyone. And he had no appointed heir, as was stipulated in the last Old Testament of Abdu'l. So there was a leadership crisis afterwards, because he just died so fast. It says, yet will come to his end and no one will help him. Because no one could help him because he died so fast. So we have Daniel 11 there. But one thing it also says, going back to 2 Thessalonians, not to become easily or instead alarmed by some prophecy, report, or letter supposed to have come from us, saying, the day of the Lord has already come. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. So the day of the Lord cannot come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed. But Shoghi Effendi came after Abdu'l and after Baha'u'llah, which means the day of the Lord has not come yet. It says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 regarding the day of the Lord. Now, brothers, about times and dates, we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come upon them suddenly as labor pains come on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. So as I said, the day of the Lord has not come yet. They will be saying peace and safety. We think everything's okay. We're living in the will of God. Right now, the Baha'is are saying peace and unity. It's almost a perfect fit. Peace and safety, peace and unity. Because we think that we're going to be safe in the fortress, and we think that this is going to take over the whole world, and we're going to rule to the universal house of justice. But when the truth comes out, this is a forged document. This is not of God. Destruction will come upon them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. So it will be very painful when the truth comes out, because Baha'is are going to have to face that, hey, I just believe the lie. I believe the Antichrist. I believe the fortress of Satan here. I just believe that. And this is going to be very, very painful for Baha'is to admit over what just happened. Now, let's come back to Zechariah 13, verses 1 through 6. Referring to the day of the Lord. On that day, a fountain will be opened to the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and impurity, referring to the Baha'i administrative order. On that day, I will banish the names of the idols from the land, and they will be remembered no more, referring to the Baha'i administrative order. Declares the Lord Almighty, I will remove both the prophets and the spirit of impurity from the land. And still, if anyone prophesies, their father and mother to whom they were born will say to them, you must die, because you have told lies in the name of the Lord. This is the Baha'i administrative order. Once it comes out that the Baha'i administrative order is not of God, and this is a forged document, if anyone still claims to believe in the Baha'i administrative order and the guardianship of Shoghi Effendi, it says, you must die because you have told lies in the Lord's name. They think they're talking in the name of the Lord, but they're not. These are lies, because the lie, in 2 Thessalonians 2, is the last will and testament of Abdu'l. They'll say, then their own parents will stab the one who prophesies. On that day, every prophet will be ashamed of the prophetic vision, because people won't have to realize, I just believe the lie. I can't believe I just did something like that. I am ashamed of what I just did. And they will not put on a prophet's garment on their hair in order to deceive. Each will say, I am not a prophet, I am a farmer. Because what's going to happen, and it's like, no, I never liked Shoghi Effendi at all. I just went along with it because I didn't know what was going on. Deep down, I never liked the Baha'i administrative order. Because that's what happened. They're not going to say, well, I never believed in it. I'm actually a farmer. I actually believed this the whole time. Lying has been my livelihood since my youth. If someone asks, what are these wounds on your body? They will answer, the wounds I was given at the house of my friends, because they will not want to accept their role in the Baha'i administrative order. As I said, the lies were told in the Lord's name, which is the Baha'i administrative order and Shoghi Effendi. So the day of the Lord is the fall of the Baha'i administrative order. It says a little bit later, awake, my sword against my shepherd, against the man who is close to me, declares the Lord Almighty. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn my hand against the little ones. And the whole land, declares the Lord. 2/3 will be struck down and perish, yet 1/3 will be left in it. This third I will put into fire, I will refine like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. Again, this is Baha'i administrative order being struck down here. 2/3 will be struck down and will perish. Because when the truth comes out, 2/3 will not believe the truth. They will continue to believe in the Baha'i administrative order. But it says 1/3 will be left in it. Because the path of God is not always the easy path. It's not always the popular path. These are the people of God. This dirt I will put into fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. So remember, from my previous presentation, gold is a symbol of something godly. They are going to be tested. It is going to be a difficult path, but this is the path of truth, and this is the path of God. And it says, they will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. Listen, the majority are not going to believe the truth. They will continue to believe the lies of Shoghi Effendi. The one who recognizes the lies will be my God's people, but will be tested through tribulation. We come back down to the beasts. But just kind of referring. The beasts of Daniel were the kingdoms of France, Germany, Great Britain, and the Umayyad Caliphate. The beast out of the sea is the Umayyad Caliphate. The beast out of the earth is the Abbasid Caliphate. And the scarlet beast is Vatican. Now I'm giving you I'm reminding you what that is from my previous presentations, because it says in Revelation 20, the devil who deceives them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast, false prophet, had been thrown. They'll be tormented day and night forever and ever. Now, if you put this verse in context, the devil is referenced as the end of the 1,000 years. So the devil's deception during the next manifestation, because every manifestation of God has either been killed or died in exile. I don't see why the next manifestation would be any different. He's going to be rejected as every manifestation of God has been. And so the devil in the deception is prophecy for what the next manifestation and the next messenger of God is going to go through. Now, it says, where the beast and false prophet had been thrown. The previous beasts, except for the ones in Daniel 7, that says those are kingdoms. But the other beasts, those were the institutionalizations of religion, something they never should have done. So previous beasts were institutionalization. So this next beast is the Baha'i administrative order, because they institutionalized the religion as they should not have done. Because the beast has been thrown into the lake of fire. Because the day of the Lord struck the beast down, and he was thrown into the lake of fire where the false prophet is. The false prophet is Shoghi Effendi, because he was the one who claimed to be the guardian of the faith when he got it off a forged document. So There's your beast right there. One thing, Christ's kingdom says in Luke 17, once I'm being asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God would come, Jesus replied, the kingdom of God is not something that can be seen or observed, nor will people say, here it is, or there it is, because the kingdom of God is in your midst. He says, John 18, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my kingdoms would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is another place. The Baha'i administrative order creates a physical kingdom because it says, because the Baha'i administrative order believes that the whole world is going to unite under the control of the Universal House of Justice, and the world is going to answer to them. That's what it says. That's a physical kingdom right there. But this explicitly says this is not a physical kingdom. It's a spiritual kingdom. So no, this Baha'i administrative order, this is not of God. Now we get to the interpreted God will, because right now the Baha'i administrative order claims that they are the ultimate interpreter. They're infallible. They decide what it is, and it's through the guardian that the whole thing is protected. Because I mean, this is just my personal opinion. It's what I personally went through. It's just many Christians claim to speak half of God. They don't. Like, well, if you don't agree with me, you're going to hell for eternity. It's like, no, you can't make that claim. Only God is the judge. And for you to sit there and claim that you're the judge, that is literally called blasphemy. You can't do stuff like that. The Pope claims to be God's representative on earth. He doesn't. Remember, I fought against ISIS. ISIS claims to be the judge, and to disagree with them is to burn in hell for eternity. It's like, no, they're not. Universal House of Justice to claim to be infallible, and they can declare covenant breakers, people become covenant breakers, and the guardian was the ultimate interpreter. No, he isn't. None of them are. I mean, it's just like, right now, it's just like, I have so many different groups sending me to hell for eternity, and all I've done is just follow the facts where I believe God, where I believe the facts have led me, where I believe God has led me. But yet, I have many different organizations all sending me to hell for eternity. It's like, they can't make that claim. And for them to sit there and make that claim is literally blasphemy. It says James 4:12, it says, there's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? It's not the Christians who think that they can, what they think is the ultimate will of God. It's not what the Pope says. It's not what ISIS says. It's not what the Universal House of Justice, as Shoghi Effendi says. It's whatever God decides. So, just here are my final thoughts. Abdu'l says, it is faith, knowledge, certitude, justice, piety, high-mindedness, trustworthiness, love of God, and charity. It is mercy to the poor, assistance to the oppressed, generosity to the needy, upliftment of the fallen. It is purity, detachment, humility, forbearance, and constancy. These are divine qualities. These commands will never be abrogated, but it will remain in effect for all eternity. Because notice he doesn't say it's obedience to the administrative order. It's obedience to the guardian. No, it's going out, making the world a better place. As Jesus said, Matthew 22. Jesus replied, love the Lord God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on these two commandments. Again, what God wants is love. Go out, make the world a better place. Help the poor, help the needy, raise each other up. Those are the commandments of God. Remember, Abdu'l, 30 March 1912. Abdu'l bestowed those three souls his utmost kindness and blessing and bade them farewell. With great sadness and dejection, they left the ship. The master's heart was broken, and all the companions were very sad. Abdu'l said, there is wisdom in this matter, and which will be known, which will become known later. Because that right there, 1912, that's what set the rebellion in motion. And that's what set the day of the Lord in motion. And that's what Abdu'l is referring to right there. And with that, this is a summary of everything we've gone to. Please share all these videos with all your friends. We went over the seven trumpet blasts. Then we went over the beast out of the sea, beast out of the earth. We went over the two witnesses, the Daniel 7 kingdoms, then the Babylon the Great and the Scarlet Beast, then the Revelation 20 beast, and the man of lawlessness. So thank you very much for my presentations. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I enjoyed giving the presentation. And remember, share with all your friends. And remember, what God wants in this life is love for Him, love for your neighbors, helping the poor, helping the needy, and making the world a better place.